Hi, everyone. We are live. Welcome. I'm Faith Moore, and this is a live stream reading and Q&A event about my book, Christmas Carol, which is available now and out for Christmas via Daily Wire Books, who has published this book. So feel free to make ample use of the chat. This is meant to be a conversation between me and you, even though I am the only one who actually is on the screen or can say words out loud. But I see the chat, I see you guys saying hi, and I'm so happy that you're here and can see me and hear me. Hi, guys. And that the chat is the place where you can comment on anything that you're seeing and hearing right now. You can talk to each other, and you can also put questions there. I've received some questions in advance, some great questions. Thank you to all of you who submitted questions. And so I will do my best to get to as many of those questions as I can, but I also am going to be checking in with the chat quite a bit and taking questions from there. I'm also going to be reading some sections from the book, from Christmas Carol, and you can also comment on what you're hearing and ask questions after that if you have questions about the book. So just a couple of things in case you're new here, in case you don't know who I am. I'm Faith Moore. I'm a mom who wrote a book. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have two kids, an almost 3-year-old and an almost 9-year-old, and I wrote this book, Christmas Carol, which is a novel, pretty much during my 2-year-old's nap time. Mostly the biggest hat I wear is mom, but then the next biggest is writer, and then the next one that I wear is editor. I also edit people's writing. And so the best place that you can find me generally is on my website. That's not my website. You can find me there too. Here's my website, faithkmoore.com. That's where you can contact me there. There's just a contact page. I always love to hear from you. It goes straight to my email. I always get it. Sometimes it goes to spam, but I always check my spam. And I will get back to you if you are trying to get in touch. So that's the place you can do that. It's also the place you can find me if you're looking for an editor, although I will say at this point that I am booked through July of next year, which I'm very grateful for, but it means that if you're looking for an editor right now, I'm not your gal. But if you need an editor in July, you can get in touch. There's also a whole bunch of, I have a blog there that I update kind of periodically, but you can read some of my past stuff. I also have some writing courses that are there under course offerings. You can find them. Some are for sale, but some are free. So you can just check that out. So you can find me there. It's also the place where you can sign up for my mailing list. I do not bombard you with emails. I don't even send a weekly email at this point or a monthly email. I just kind of email to let you know if something's happening. Like I sent an email to my mailing list about this live stream, for example, or when the book came out. So if you want to kind of keep up to date on things that are going on with me, then that's a good thing to do, is to go to faithkmoore.com and then click on the link to sign up for my mailing list. Also, you can find me on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days. I'm at Faith K Moore. I love that. I love Twitter to my shame. I love it. I've met so many amazing, wonderful people there. I know everybody hates it, but I love it. So I am always there, and you can find me, you can DM me, you can follow me, we can chat. So those are the two best places to find me. And I will come back to that later and show you that again. So that's that. The book that we're talking about mostly today is Christmas Carol. There's a link in the description of this video to get yourself a copy if you don't already. It's available via the Daily Wire's website, but also on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and other places where you buy books. So you can do that. And the last thing to just kind of tell you about before we jump into questions and reading is this book is a great book for Christmas because it's all about Christmas. It's very Christmassy. It's filled with all kinds of sort of like wholesome Christmassy things. So it's great to give as a gift for Christmas. And so because of that, if you would like a signed copy of the book, I can't physically sign your copy. There aren't any signed copies, physical copies for sale, but I am giving away book plates right now, which is a kind of sticker that just goes into the part of the book where a signature would go. And I'm personalizing them. So it would have the name of whoever you're giving the book to, or if you want it for yourself, that's completely fine too. So it would have your name, I'm writing a little message, and then signing it. And then what you would do is if you were giving it as a gift, you would get that sticker in the mail and then you would stick it into the part of the book. So here, I have another copy of the book because this is what I'm going to read from. So you would stick it, I'll show you. You would stick it on this page right here. It's the right size to go right here. And then when you gave it as a gift on Christmas, the person would get this book, which hopefully they'll very much enjoy, but also they'll get it signed. So that's cool. And you can also get it for yourself and have a signed copy yourself. So that information is also on my website, faithkmore.com, and a link is in the description of this video as well. Okay, so hi, I'm seeing everyone in the chat. Hello. Sam says he can't stay, but I'll drop some questions and listen to your answers later if you don't mind answering them. Fantastic. Yes, drop questions. If you're only here for a bit, this will be up on my YouTube channel forever after this. So if you need to go and come back later, hopefully I'll be able to get to your questions. Okay, so I'd like to just start with a bit of a reading. And I'm going to be, it's not a super long section, but it's long-ish. It's probably going to take me about 5 minutes to read it. While you're listening, you are welcome to be sort of reacting in the chat and talking to each other. And then when I'm done, I'll check the chat. This book, you probably already know what it's about since you're here, but I'll just tell you anyway. So Christmas Carol is a modern retelling of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but the Scrooge character has been reimagined as a workaholic mom named Carol, whose miserliness is not about her money the way Scrooge's is, but about her time and how much time she chooses to spend or not spend with her family. And on Christmas Eve, she suffers a fall and ends up in a very strange hospital where she's taken on a tour of her past, present, and future in the hopes that she will remember what matters, which is her family. So that's what the book is about. It follows the structure of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but it has completely different themes and ideas, and the characters are tied to the Dickens characters, but they're very different and they're not the same. I'm not going to do spoilers so much here. I might give a couple of kind of details about the plot, but all of the sections that I've chosen to read tonight come kind of early on. So it's not too much of a spoiler situation. So I hope that you will indulge me as I read a section aloud, and then I see already that there's some questions coming into the chat, which is fantastic. So I'll read a little bit. Feel free to comment and react as I go, and then I will check the chat. So this first reading comes from chapter 1. So it's right there at the beginning. And what's happening is it's Christmas Eve. And Carol, our main character, has promised that she was going to make cookies with her 2 kids, Annabelle and Alfie. Annabelle is 9 and Alfie is 4. But she's also dealing with a largely made up crisis at work. She's a lawyer, and she has kind of orchestrated this issue so that she kind of doesn't have to deal with the kids and all the Christmassy stuff at home because she doesn't want to do that. But she's decided that she's going to spend a little bit of time in the kitchen with the kids so that her husband Beau doesn't guilt trip her. And so the kids feel like, they got some amount of time with her, and she's going to do that. And then she's going to go, but she kind of doesn't want to. She doesn't want to do this. Okay. So here we go. At the bottom of the stairs, her 2 children turned back around. 2 sets of blue eyes, 2 blonde heads. Alfie's hair tousled and spiking up at odd angles. 2 little mouths suddenly smiling. Annabelle raised her eyebrows, a look of relief spreading over her face. She turned away. Alfie beamed, showing his square little teeth. He was wearing a hideous green and red sweater with a picture of a goofy-looking llama on it. The words "Fa la 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 llama" were knitted onto it one sleeve. The other sleeve had a line of white pom-poms all the way down it. "Mommy!" Alfie yelled. Carol winced. "Too loud," she said. Alfie's smile faltered. "Where'd you get that awful sweater?" Karol reached the bottom of the stairs and walked past the children toward the kitchen. I like my sweater. Alfie ran to catch up. Annabelle had gone ahead of them into the kitchen. Daddy says it's the perfect sweater for Christmas Eve, and I'm the perfect little guy to wear it. Daddy would say something like that, Karol muttered. Karol passed the den, barely glancing at the 8-foot Christmas tree lit up in green and red and blue. Bo had carried it home a few weeks ago and decorated it with the children. She'd hardly looked at it. It was a tree. It belonged outside as far as Karol was concerned. And they'd probably put that stupid little angel on top, the one from when she and Fran were kids. Karol had tried to throw it away, but Bo had put his foot down on that one, said they had to keep it. So it was probably up there, impaled on top of the tree. Another Christmas tradition that made no sense. Shove a tree branch up an angel's butt. Merry Christmas. She didn't want to see it. She walked past the den, turned, and went down the 2 steps to the kitchen. The music was playing on the kitchen speakers, too. A treacly voice was singing, Mary, Did You Know? Yeah, Karol muttered. I'm pretty sure she knew. Alfie and Annabelle were standing at the kitchen island. Alfie was on a step stool and Annabelle was tying a red apron with white snowflakes around his waist. Thankfully, it covered the stupid llama's stupid face. Annabelle was wearing a matching one. She looked up and flicked her eyes to the back of the pantry door, which was open, revealing another red snowflaked apron in Karol's size hanging on a hook. She hesitated. She wasn't planning on staying that long, but she figured this would keep everyone calm for a minute and buy her some goodwill. So she rolled her eyes and went to get the apron. Where had they gotten all this stuff anyway? And could it all be returned, like right now? On the island counter, Annabelle had assembled the ingredients, along with a mixing bowl, a spoon, and a bunch of other random things that Karol was pretty sure didn't have anything to do with cookies, like a toy fire truck, a piece of mail, and a laptop power cord. Alfie helped me set up, Annabelle said by way of an explanation. Oh, and this came for you. She plucked the envelope out of the debris and handed it to Karol. Karol finished tying her apron and took the envelope. It had already been opened. Alfie was bouncing up and down on his step stool. He grabbed a wooden spoon from the mixing bowl and waved it around. Deck the halls with Batman smells, fa la 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 la, my mommy's here, he yelled. Out the window over the sink, a man in a wool overcoat and wraparound earmuffs walked by carrying a Christmas wreath in a leather-gloved hand. He paused just outside their house to wait for a little girl in a pink puffer coat to catch up, red pigtails flying out behind her. She slammed into him and he hugged her tight. Karol looked down at the envelope in her hand. Her heart gave a sour lurch. Annabelle, she said. Annabelle looked up and then away. She busied herself with the iPad that was propped up on a bag of flour. This is from my sister, Karol said. From Fran. You know I don't want any mail from... Dad said to give it to you, Annabelle said, but whatever. Just throw it away. I don't care. Can we make cookies now? The recipe's right here. Anger erupted in Karol's chest and she tossed the envelope, clearly a card of some kind, into the trash beside the dishwasher, stomping too hard on the little black foot pedal and making the metal lid flip up with a bang. How many times did she have to tell Bo she wanted nothing to do with Fran? Literally nothing. Fine, she said. What are we supposed to do here? Okay, Annabelle said, pushing her headband onto her head and standing up straighter. It says here, the first ingredient is flour. We put flowers in there? Alfie said, wrinkling his nose. What kind of cookies is this? Ha ha, Annabelle said flatly. You say that every time, Alfie. Across the street, a man and a woman came out of the park, hand in mittened hand. Karol watched them pause on the sidewalk. The woman tucked her hair behind her ears and looked down at the ground. The man reached out, put a finger under her chin and tilted her face up to his. She took a step toward him. He bent his head. A car went by, blocking Karol's view of them for a moment. She shook her head, turned back to the children. Wait, Alfie! Annabelle reached for the bag of flour just as Alfie tried to put his wooden spoon in it. The bag tipped over and flour skidded out, landing on the floor in a mushroom cloud of white powder. Karol's nostrils flared as she breathed in, her lips pressed tightly together. It was possible she literally couldn't do this. Sorry, Mommy, Alfie said, bending his whole body at the waist and tilting his head so he could look up into her eyes. It's... On the counter by the sink, Karol's phone began to ring. Relief flooded through her. She leapt over the mini mountain of flour and scooped up the phone. She checked the caller ID, Roberta Plunkett. I've got to take this, she said without turning around. Clean up this mess, okay? And she walked out of the room. That's the end of chapter 1. Okay, I'm going to check the chat. Let's see. Gosh, a lot of things. Yay, I'm glad you guys are talking to me. Okay. Smash that like button, hug that subscribe button. Yes, do it. Subscribe. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're here, come on. Okay, let's see. I love this book, and I've honestly wondered how the sales for it have been so far. That is a great question. I actually have no idea. I don't know. The Daily Wire keeps the sales numbers, and so I hope it's doing really well. I'm getting a lot of great reviews on Amazon, which is usually a good indicator that it's doing okay. So I feel good about that. And if you have read it and you haven't left a 5-star review, I would love it if you would. It really, really helps. It helps it become more visible in Amazon. So if you could do that, that would be great. If you hated it, just keep that to yourself, please. But if you liked it, then please give it a 5-star review on Amazon. That would be amazing. But yeah, I don't know how it's doing. I hope it's good. How much input did you have into the very unique cover that the book got? 0. I had 0 input, and actually that's very normal. People don't know this necessarily, but authors usually don't have a say in the cover. And it's a kind of exciting surprise when the art department finishes up and somebody sends it to you and says, here's your cover. And that happened to me. It happened in July. I got the cover, but I love it. It's really, really cool. And I could never make a cover. I'm not visually artistic at all. So I'm really, really pleased that they did it. I think it really captures some of the spooky elements. I think sometimes I tell people, don't worry, it's not a scary book, because I think sometimes people worry that it's scary because the cover is scary. There are ghosts because there are ghosts in the Dickens original, but mostly it's very Christmassy. It's all about Christmas. So, but the cover is really cool and very eye-catching and arresting. So I love it. Love it. But yeah, authors usually don't get a whole lot of say or any say at all in the cover. So it's kind of an interesting fact. Let's see. The cover is super neat. Thank you. Yes. I don't know why I'm saying thank you. Yes, it is. I agree. Let's see. Okay. I know these are all from Sam because Sam had to go. I'm going to skip some and answer others. What was the hardest part of the book to write? And do you plan on writing more fiction in the future? Okay, I'll answer the second part first. Yes. All I want to do is write fiction. I mean, in my writing life, all I really want to do is hang out with my kids and my husband, but also all I ever really want to do is write fiction. I'm very lucky and grateful that I got to have this kind of nonfiction career as a freelance writer, writing kind of op-eds and other features like that. And that really, really helped me to hone my writing, even for fiction, especially for fiction. It really helped. And it really helped me to sort of focus my writing and, research things and write to specifications, which is really hard. And I'm so grateful to have learned that. But really all I want to do is write novels. I'm writing another one now. It's just in my own computer. I haven't sold it anywhere yet. So stay tuned, because it will, if I have anything to do with it, it will see the light of day in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, all I ever want to do is write stories. So I'm really grateful that I get to do this now. And the hardest part of the book to write, gosh, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. The book was very joyful to write. I wrote it mostly during my son's nap, and it really felt like a break. I would pour a cup of tea and, sit down with no distractions. I'd turn off all the social media and email and stuff like that. And I would just write and write. There were things that were really important to me, like things that I wanted to make sure I did right, that I did justice to the Dickens story, but that I didn't just kind of retell this story, but with a woman. So, there were a lot of things on my mind when I was writing, but I'm not sure I can pick the hardest part. So sorry, that's a cop out. Okay. What is your second favorite movie version of A Christmas Carol? Because we all know your number one favorite. Yeah. My number one favorite is the Alistair Sim version of A Christmas Carol, because we watch it every year and we have done since I was a very little girl. I don't think I have a second. There is only that one. in my mind. There is only the Alistair Sim version of A Christmas Carol. I'm very sorry. I know many of you like The Muppet Christmas Carol, and it is very sweet and lovely, but I actually don't like it. And I had a whole reason for that when I watched it last year, and I can't remember what it was. And I asked my husband, and he didn't remember either. So I don't have a good reason for that. I'm sorry. You're just going to have to believe me that it's not as good. Okay. Merry Christmas, Sam. Yes, Merry Christmas. Okay. Oh, sorry, I lost my place. Okay, then I think these are reactions to when I was reading. I love the sassiness of all the characters. Thank you. It's the perfect sweater. Yes, it is. Who wouldn't want a sweater that says "Fa la la llama" on it? I hate to say it, but I'm with Karol on the angel. Star top for the tree any day. Well, Christmas season. Fair enough. Fair enough. A star is also an acceptable tree topper. Heather says, I love how natural the family scenes feel. Such a great job. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now I'm curious what's on the sister's card. Yes, good. Get the book. Link in the description. Buy the book. You'll find out what's on the sister's card. Can I just say I love the move to make headbands cool again in this book. Annabelle is a big wearer of headbands. And I think that's probably because when I was Annabelle's age, I also was a big wearer of headbands. I'm aware that headbands are probably not so in with little girls today, but when I pictured her, I pictured the sort of velvet, puffy headbands that I used to wear as a little girl. And they're kind of they worked as a kind of character almost in themselves for her, because they keep like flopping down and she has to sort of like push them up, and she's very kind of like mature, and she's kind of parentified, and so it's just a motion that I wanted to give to her to kind of give her a little bit of extra sass. So yeah, she has a headband. Okay, curious about where you got the name Plunkett. Do you know someone with that name? It's my maiden name. Oh, that's so funny. That's amazing. So Roberta Plunkett is the Bob Cratchit character, and her name is Roberta because that is the feminized form of Robert, which is what Bob is short for. And then Plunkett just sort of, it was like a name that sounded to me like Cratchit, like it was a similar sounding name. So I just gave it to her. I didn't even know it was really a name. So that's amazing. That's fantastic. I'm really glad I invented a real name. Okay. How did you choose these characters? They feel very natural and knowable. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean by choose. So the characters, the seed for each character came from the Dickens character. So Karol, the seed for Karol came from Scrooge. The seed for Beau, Carol's husband, came from Belle, Scrooge's fiance, et cetera, et cetera. There are a couple of characters who are kind of mashups of two characters, and there are a couple of characters that I invented, but most of them have some connection to the Dickens. And then I tried to kind of infuse them with the idea of the character, but within the themes of my story. One thing that was really important, I kind of said this already, but one thing that was really important to me was not just taking a male character and making it a female character, but having it be exactly the same. Because what is the point of that? There is no point of that. People do that all the time now, and I hate that. So I didn't want to do that. And so I was trying to kind of take the essence of each character and then make it make sense for my story, for the story I was trying to tell. And so I hope that works. How did you get connected with the Daily Wire? Well, my family is really connected with the Daily Wire. You may or may not know. So my dad, Andrew Clavin, has a podcast with the Daily Wire. My brother, Spencer Clavin, has done several things with them. My brother-in-law also works there. So I just know a lot of people there, and was able to submit a proposal for this book, and they were kind enough to accept it. And I feel very grateful for that. Who are your writing role models? Have they surprised you at all with new book choices? Hi, Amanda. So the living writer who I most sort of aspire to emulate is Curtis Sittenfeld. Um, she writes in this way where the voice, I mean, it's different for each book, but the voice that she creates is the perfect voice, and the writing style is the perfect writing style for each story that she has to tell. And it's so simple, so crystalline. It's not, there's nothing overblown about it. And it makes it so that she, the author, is sort of never there. Like, she's never inserting herself into the story. And it's really, really incredible. I love her writing. She also wrote a book called Eligible, which is a modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So she's kind of a model for me, because this is a modern retelling of also a classic. Did you read Charles Dickens to get inspiration straight from the source, or did you just take the idea and modernized it? Yes, I read the Dickens several times, and I had a really dorky kind of like spreadsheet where I read the book and then I outlined the book that I had read, and then in a sort of table like where each box was a kind of plot point in the Dickens story. And then I plotted my own story out in corresponding boxes. So yes, I was like that person with the like string and the craziness coming out. And then I did that with the characters too. So I had all the Dickens characters in a kind of spreadsheet and all of my characters corresponding, to make sure that I wasn't going off on some weird tangent. I really wanted to do the Dickens story proud without just copying it. So yes, I tried to stay very close to the Dickens, or at least have in my mind what was going on. So yeah, so it is closer than just kind of taking that idea and turning it into my own. It is a closer kind of adaptation. Good question. How many books do we all need to buy to convince Daily Wire to make a movie of this book? It would make a great movie. Thank you. I think it would make a great movie as well. Yes, buy all the books. I don't know how many you would need to buy, but buy them all, because I think that would really help to convince them to make a movie, because I think that would be so fun. I totally saw this as a movie while I was reading. I hope the Daily Wire will make one. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate how many people are saying it would make a great movie. I kind of saw it as a movie too while I was writing it in a couple of ways. So I hope that happens. I love the word pictures, like the sunlight slicing into her eyes. Are there any authors whose style you admire? So, okay, same thing. Same answer. Curtis Sittenfeld, very much like that. Who would you cast as Karol's? Yes. So several people have asked me about casting the movie. That was a question I got on Twitter and other places as well. I have a hard time with this because for two reasons. One, I don't want to put people in your mind, because when you have seen a movie and then you read the book, it's really hard not to just picture the actors in the book, and that's not what the author intended. So I struggle with that. Also, there aren't like actors that readily come to mind. So the other day I was on the Quirky Books, the book club show with the Quirks of Creation. What is the actual, Jess, what is the actual book club called? It's the Quirks of Creation. Lovely people who had a book club, and they had me on to talk about my book. And the closest I could come was I said Anne Hathaway for Karol and Henry Cavill for Beau. That was as close as I could come, but I don't even really love those choices. Okay. I seem to have reached the end of the chat, so that's good. And I'm going to get to like one or two questions that were submitted in advance, and then I'm going to read a little bit more, and then I'll come back to the chat. Also, I'm going to drink this water. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so let's see. What's a good one? Here's like a completely different topic. Somebody asked me on Twitter, what's your favorite live action Disney remake? Because my other writing life was writing about Disney. If you haven't checked that out, I have a book called Saving Cinderella, which you can find on Amazon, all about Disney princesses. And my answer to this may surprise you, because some people really hate this movie. My answer is the Beauty and the Beast live action remake, not just because Beauty and the Beast is my favorite story of all time, which it is, but because I think when you're going to do a live action remake of something, it has to be because you want to make it more realistic. Like if it started as a cartoon and now you're turning it into like real people, then it has to be because you're trying to make the story more realistic. You're trying to bring it into the real world in some way that it wasn't as a cartoon. And I think that they tried to do that with the character of the Beast. I think they kind of failed. Like I didn't like what they did with the Beast character, but I thought that they tried. And I felt good about that for them. Like I felt like that was their best try and I didn't love it, but it was okay. Okay. Um let's answer one more. From from the world at large. One I got earlier. This is from Shannon. So this one's a little different, and you're welcome to ask me questions that don't have to do with the book if you have some other questions for me. This person did. She said, "I've dreamed of finding true love as is described in fairy tales. However, with the recent divorce of my parents, I have to question how I could sustain a marriage when divorce is still a reality. How can I still find a relationship without feeling like it's unachievable?" Okay, so first of all, I'm really sorry about the divorce of your parents. That's really sad. I don't know exactly how old you are, but it doesn't matter because your parents getting a divorce is awful. And I'm really sorry about that. And I could understand how it would shake your, belief in the possibility of finding love. I think the part of this question that I want to acknowledge is we often sort of think about like a fairy tale romance and we think about that idea as something that we want to kind of fall for someone in the way that we see people falling for each other in fairy tales, and I think that's actually a mistake because as I'm always trying to say to people, fairy tales are never meant to be taken literally. They're always an allegory, a metaphor, or filled with symbolism, and the symbolism of that kind of love at first sight or the kind of fairy tale romance is not to be taken as a literal thing of like you're supposed to, the person's not right for you unless you see them across a crowded room and you know at first glance. Like, no, that thing, I saw you across a crowded room and I knew at first glance, is a metaphor for the thing that happens when you have fallen in love with someone in whatever way you fall in love with that person. That meeting of souls and meeting of minds and meeting of spirits that might take years to happen. It might take months to happen, and it might happen in a different way for you. It might not be overly romantic and filled with swelling violins and there might not be a ball gown or whatever. It might be kind of like funny jokes and watching TV and eating ice cream together or whatever. So I think the thing to remember is that a fairy tale romance doesn't look like a romance in a fairy tale. It makes you feel like love. It makes you feel like that connection. And so I think if you're sort of waiting around for that kind of lightning bolt to come out of the sky and hit you because you saw some guy across the room, then you're probably not going to find the right person for you. But if you're willing to kind of wait and see, then and let something grow and build, then then I think that you can find love. And the truth is that yes, I mean, people fall out of love or divorce happens or whatever it is, but you can't live your life because you can't live your life on the principle of the fact that something might go wrong. Anything could go wrong. We could walk out of the door tomorrow and get hit by a car, but that's not a good reason to stay inside all day long. So it's really, really sad that your parents got a divorce, and I can understand how devastating that would be for you, and it would rock your foundation and all of that. But I think the fact that divorce exists is not a good reason to sort of never seek love and to not stay with someone or even marry someone because you might get a divorce. Well, yeah, like anything might happen. So you kind of have to take a leap of faith, um, as long as you feel like you found the person that you are connecting with in a way that you feel like you could spend the rest of your life with that person. Um, a good question to ask if you're in a relationship is to sort of ask yourself, well, what would my life be without this person? I mean, that's how I knew I wanted to marry my husband, because I said, okay, well, what would it be like if he wasn't in my life anymore? And then I said, oh, I should get married. I should marry him. Right. So I hope that helps. I hope that's an answer. And let's see. I'm just seeing such a beautiful point. We've confuddled the things that were supposed to be metaphors and what was not in our stories. Yes, it's a big problem in society generally, that we don't understand how to read, well, fairy tales, but stories in general. We don't understand about metaphors anymore. And it's true on the left and on the right. It's something we're all doing. And we all need to kind of try to remember what a story is, because that's important. Okay, I'm going to read another quick section. Before I do that, in case you just joined us, just a few reminders. The best place to find me is my website, faithkmoore.com. You can contact me that way. You can find out about editing stuff. You can find writing courses, and you can join my mailing list there. But I also love to talk to people on Twitter or X, and I'm at Faith K. Moore there. So those are the places where you can find me. My website is the place where you can go to get one of those book plates, a signed sticker to put in your book if you want to give it as a gift, or if you just want to have a signed copy for yourself. That's where you can go to my website. It's right there on the homepage. So it's very easy to find. And all the links to do things like buy the book are in the description of this video. So just scroll down, it's right there, and you can click on it and get yourself a copy. Okay, let's read a little bit more. So this next part is Karol has now made it to the office. She left. Everybody's very angry and upset. And she left and she went into the office and she spent some time there doing sort of random things that weren't important, but they kept her away from her kids. And as she was leaving, she thought she heard somebody in the office next door, which belonged to her law partner, Marley Jacobs, who has been dead for a couple of years. She thought she heard someone in there, but she went in and there was nobody there. And now she is trying to get to a meeting. She's in Manhattan. Her office is kind of near Rockefeller Center. So she's kind of traveling through the crowds, the Christmas crowds at Rockefeller Center, in order to get to a meeting that she has also invented. She has decided that now she needs to, instead of going to church with the rest of her family, because she doesn't do church, she has decided that she is going to try to meet up with somebody's assistant and bother him while he's having some dinner with his family, and hopefully get to avoid the church service. So she's trying to get to the subway, and she's dealing with the traffic at Rockefeller Center. She's walking, and she's dealing with all the people at Rockefeller Center. All right. Let's see. Where should we start? Karol turned her back on the light show. So the Saks Fifth Avenue light show has kind of lit up, and all these tourists are like crowding the street, and she's really annoyed with everybody, and she's just trying to get through. So Karol turned her back on the light show and found herself directly across from the Rockefeller tree. The long garden between two buildings that led to the skating rink and then the tree was lit with tiny fairy lights. In the planters, white wire angels lifted brass trumpets to their lips, bugling silently into the sky. Beyond them, the tree, decked out in giant multicolor bulbs, towered over everything. Behind her, the Saks display kept going, the music whipping the crowd into a frenzy of oohs and ahs. Karol let out another huff of frustration and walked into the garden. The fastest way to the subway was through there, past the tree, then along 50th Street to 6th Avenue. She could catch the F train there. It was a moment before she realized how empty the garden was. She slowed down, hitching her purse up onto her shoulder instinctively. Normally, this narrow walkway nestled between two skyscrapers would be packed with tourists, all shuffling slowly forward for their chance to take a picture in front of the tree. That was exactly why Karol never walked down here this time of year. Behind her, the crowd was still clogging up the sidewalk, staring across the street at the lights on Saks. Karol could still hear the frenetic music, but it was muted somehow, like it was far away, like she'd closed a door on it when she'd stepped into the garden. In front of her, the angels stood silently, lit by spotlights concealed in the planters. The office building entrances that led out into the garden were all shadowy and vacant. The place was deserted. Carol took a few more steps, peering into the shadows, worried about muggers. With a jolt, she realized there was someone else here, down at the end of the long, thin garden, her back to Carol. The woman was leaning forward, her arms on the low wall surrounding the ice rink, peering down into it. Beyond her, the giant statue of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods glittered gold in the lights from the rink. Above her, the tree loomed, silent and sparkling. Carol walked slowly down the path, watching her. Tight brown ringlet curls skimmed the woman's shoulders, emerging from under a white beret. She was wearing a black wool coat, belted at the waist, white jeans and black high-heeled boots. She looked relaxed, her elbows resting on the wall, one hand propped against her cheek. As Carol got closer, the skating rink, set down below street level, came into view. There were skaters down there, but not the usual hodgepodge of kids and parents, couples on dates, teenagers laughing. These were real skaters, women in flowing tulle skirts and white earmuffs, men in black spandex pants and gem-encrusted white tunics. And they were dancing a slow, dreamlike dance on the ice, circling and swooping around each other in a silent ballet. There was no music. Carol couldn't even hear the music from Sax anymore. The whole place was totally silent. The woman at the wall stood motionless. Carol's breath was coming fast and shallow. It was escaping her mouth in misty little puffs. She had forgotten all about Dworkin, about tourists, the F train, or Sax. She was staring at the woman at the wall, creeping up on her, convinced with every step she'd disappear or run away or turn and be someone else entirely. It began to snow harder. A few flakes landed in Carol's eyes and she blinked them away. She was standing next to the wall now, inching along it toward the woman. The woman's bushy hair obscured her profile. Carol still couldn't see her face. Snowflakes glittered in the spotlights trained on Prometheus, then disappeared among the skaters still swooping and spinning on the ice. Carol reached out a hand and put it on the wall to steady herself. She took a deep breath. Marley? The woman turned. Carol's heart leapt into her throat, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. Skin the color of rich caramel, green eyes fringed with heavy dark lashes, full lips and high cheekbones. Marley. Carol reached toward her but didn't touch her. With a jolt, she realized that Marley was crying. Her cheeks were wet with tears, her face filled with a kind of awe. Her mouth came open. It's all so beautiful, Marley whispered. I never realized before how beautiful it all is. Carol couldn't take it in, couldn't fathom the correct response. The possibility that she'd gone crazy felt entirely worth entertaining. Snow fell thickly between them. Carol's hand was still outstretched toward her friend. 1,000 half-formed thoughts were exploding in her head. Had Marley been alive all this time? Was this a ghost? Had Roberta slipped LSD into her Starbucks? Nothing seemed plausible. What are you... Before Carol could say anything else, the skating rink speakers kicked on, blasting Sleigh Ride out over the ice. Startled, Carol turned toward the rink. The skaters were still dancing, out of step with the music, as if they couldn't hear it. When Carol turned back around, Marley was gone. All right. So Marley is dead was dead to begin with, right? That's the first part of Dickens' Scrooge. So Marley is dead, but she somehow has reappeared. Let's see. Have you ever been to the tree lighting at Rockefeller Center? I've never been to the lighting itself, but I have visited Rockefeller Center and the tree many, many times, many years. I live here in New York, so that's pretty easy to do. It is very, very crowded. So if you don't like crowds, it's kind of awful. But it's well worth seeing if you happen to be in New York at Christmas time. It is a giant, giant tree and it is beautiful. And that everything I just described, the statue of Prometheus all lit up and the sort of white wire angels with their trumpets, it's all very, very beautiful and very Christmassy. So I do like visiting. I've never been to the actual ceremony though. Do you have any writing rituals to get you into a creative frame of mind? Well, I do, but I didn't actually know it was a ritual until I started telling people about it and realized that it is. So as I've been saying, I write during nap time. So during my almost 3-year-old's nap, which is about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And so basically I like put him down for his nap and then I just go. Like I have that time, and then I just go until he wakes up. And so what I do is I make a cup of tea, and I put it into a little teapot that I have that's like a one person teapot. It makes enough for, and I have a little teacup and a little saucer. It's very fancy, and I it makes enough for about 2.5 cups of tea in the little saucer. And I come upstairs. I have a little office. It's like in a closet. So I have a closet. I open the doors and there's my desk and my chair. I have to keep the doors open in order to sit at my desk. So I go up there. I have my cup of tea beside me and I write, and that kind of, I think, helps to turn my mind over from mommy mode to like grown up writing mode. Is sort of like when I have that cup of tea and a teacup on a saucer right next to me. So I think that's the only thing. It's a sort of ritual that helps me switch over, like switch from one mode to the other. And then I turn everything off. Like the ringer of my phone stays on because if my older child needs me at school, the ringer stays on. But like I don't check texts or social media or email or anything for the amount of time that I've allotted myself to write. Um, and and that's it. So I guess I do sort of recommend that in general, that you have something that helps you switch from whatever. If writing is your side gig, as it is for many of us, do something that lets you switch from whatever mode you were in before into writing mode, and also turn off all the things that might bother you or distract you, because those are easy to get sort of wrapped up in. Karol, looking at the angels and the somewhat ominous feeling with it reminds me of that moment in the opening song of Hunchback of Notre Dame. Cool. I love that. It's so funny because there are obviously intentional things that I did in the book, but people keep noticing all these things and saying like, is it this? Did you mean this? And I'm like, no, but that's great. It's fantastic. I really believe that like once the book is written and it's out there in the world, then it's yours. It's yours. So take from it what you will. Would you be the narrator if they made this a movie? I don't know. Would it have a narrator? If it was a movie, would it have a narrator? I don't think it would. So I don't think I would. But I would like one day to be the narrator of an audiobook of one of my books. That would be really fun. But the audiobook, there is an audiobook of this, by the way, if you happen to be an audiobook person. I'm not. So I don't really know what makes a good audiobook or not. I don't listen to audiobooks because I have a hard time focusing for that. But I am hearing that the people are loving the narrator of the audiobook. So if you happen to be an audiobook person, then hopefully you'll enjoy this as an audiobook. Let's see. Why the hate for the song Merry Xmas War is Over? Because it's a terrible song. Somebody I tweeted, I think it was Michael Knowles, said, what's the worst Christmas song ever? So I said Happy, it's actually Happy Xmas, and then in parentheses, War is Over is the title of that song. It is the most like blah, bland, saccharine, ridiculous song ever. I hate it. So I hate it because it is bad. That is the reason. Why the hate? I hate it because it is bad. Okay. Do you have any favorite children's or YA books? Would you consider writing children's books or YA books? I like a lot of children's books, YA books. What's my favorite? I have a very, very soft spot for Harry Potter because I read it with my son and it was like an amazing experience for both of us. I read it aloud to him and it was lovely and wonderful. So I love Harry Potter. And so sort of classics, I really love A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, who also wrote The Secret Garden, but I think that A Little Princess is way better. So I really like that one. I have many novels that live in my desk drawer that never saw the light of day. A couple of them were YA kind of fantasy novels. I think I kind of grew out of that a little bit. I won't say I'm never going to go back to that, but I feel like the stories that I have to tell now, that I want to tell now, don't really lend themselves to a YA audience. But I'm working on a series for my son, so a kind of children's book series. I don't know if that will ever get published there for him, but I am writing that. But I really my favorite stories have a love story at the center, and like to write. My favorite stories to write have a love story at the center, and they take place in the real world, but there is one little magical element. So now you can know something about what my next book will be like. Let's see. Do you have a least favorite Christmas movie? Yes. Nightmare Before Christmas. Is that a Christmas movie? I think so. Nightmare Before Christmas. I hate that movie. We recently watched it. It was all I could do to sit through it. I find it like viscerally disturbing. Please never show me that movie ever again. Okay. You are a very good storyteller, and maybe they'll make you play the narrator if they make it a movie. I know Jesus has great plans for you. Thank you. That's so sweet of you to say. If there's a narrator and they would like me to be the narrator, I will be the narrator. How about that? As an audiobook fanatic, I can say that yours is fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, no, people are saying that it's great. She's great. So that's wonderful. I haven't heard it. I've heard the sample on Amazon or Audible or wherever, and it did sound lovely, but I really have nothing to compare it to, because I really can't listen to books. It doesn't work for me. So I had nothing to compare it to, and I believe you that it's great. So I'm so happy. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that they did an audiobook, and I'm thrilled that they found someone who did it justice. So yay. Let's see. Do I have a favorite book of my dad's? Yes, Don't Say a Word is my favorite book of my dad's. Let's see. Harry Potter is fantastic. Yes, I agree. Do you read much fantasy or sci-fi? I've noticed The Expanse on your shelf, and I know Spencer has mentioned liking The Name of the Wind, so I wondered if you like any of those. The fantasy books are my husband's. Yes, it's so funny. Everybody loves to look at my bookshelves, which I would totally want to look at people's bookshelves too. And we posted a picture, my brother posted a picture a while ago of our downstairs bookshelf. It was a picture of me turning on the Christmas music for the first time this year. And people were sort of commenting on the books. And so some of those are mine and some of those are his. So my husband is the sci-fi fantasy fan. I don't like sci-fi. I like some fantasy, but mostly the kind of fantasy that has some basis in reality. I don't love the kind of like, I loved the Game of Thrones show, but like books like Game of Thrones, I find sort of hard to get into. So that's more him. So if you see that, or like history books or like biographies of presidents, that's him. And the other ones are me. This shelf, oh wait, everything's backwards. This shelf here is my Tudor, Tudor books shelf. I used to have an entire bookshelf of Tudor books. The Tudors, if you don't know, are like Henry VIII and his wives and that time period of England, and I am obsessed with it. So you may see that coming up into my writing at some point. So those are mine. Oh, I'm backwards. Those are mine. Let's see. That's so sweet to be writing something for your son. Thank you. Nightmare Before Christmas is a horror movie. Thank you. Yes, it is a horror movie, but it has Christmas in the title. So apparently it's a Christmas movie. Have you ever included Die Hard in your Christmas movie lineup? I love Die Hard, actually. It's a really great movie. I am not prepared to wade into the conversation of whether it is a Christmas movie or not. I actually don't really care, but because it's a great movie. Our Christmas movie lineup is movies that are appropriate for almost 9-year-old boys, and Die Hard is not. So we watched, oops, sorry, just banged the table really hard. We watched Nightmare Before Christmas. That's over. We have a movie night once a week. This week I get to pick, both because it's my turn, but also because it's my birthday on Saturday. So I get to choose. I'm choosing Miracle on 34th Street. Much debate in our household over whether we should watch the old, I think it's like 1941 movie or something, or the new 1995 version. The debate centers around whether the old one is too old for my almost 9-year-old to kind of sit through or not. So if you have thoughts about that, please tell me which version of Miracle on 34th Street we should watch this weekend. Thank you. Let's see. I'm obsessed with Edwardian and Victorian time period, the turn of the century. Love it. Yes. And also excellent time periods as time periods go. So my favorite is the Tudor time period, but those are also good. Happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm turning very old. Oh, okay. You would watch both Miracles on 34th Street and compare. We don't have time though. We only have one movie night. So, because the next week someone else gets to pick, and I don't know what they're picking, but it's not that. Okay, let me get to a couple of questions from offline. And I think we have time for a few more, maybe one more reading and a few more chat questions. This is super fun. Thank you for being here and for asking all these wonderful, amazing questions. I got a question on X from John Nolte, which is a joke, but I'm going to read it because it is actually really, it says something about the life of a writer. John Nolte, by the way, has an excellent novel out called Borrowed Time. I read it. It's really good. So if you are looking for something a little bit grittier than mine, Borrowed Time, John Nolte, very good. He asks, does your mood, self-esteem, and outlook on life directly correlate to your Amazon sales rankings? Yes. Right. So you can watch, I don't know how many books get sold, but if you scroll down on Amazon past like the description of the book, past like whatever kind of publishers features are up there, like, you know, blurbs and stuff, in the product description, it tells you what number book you are in all of books Amazon. And when the book comes out, so now it's like, you know, it's like 17,000 or something like that. But when the book comes out and people start buying it, it starts to climb. And it's really hard as a writer not to obsessively check that number because it's the only number you have, right? If you didn't self-publish, you don't have the sales numbers. You don't know how many books are getting sold. And you also don't necessarily know like how many they thought were gonna sell. So like you don't know whether it's doing well or not. And it's before like reviews start coming in or before like anybody can tell you anything about how you're doing. So it's the only thing you can check. So I definitely was obsessively checking that. I got to number 775 of all books, which was kind of cool. That was really cool. That was the highest that it got. And then it kind of started to drop. And I stopped checking because now the reviews come in and that's way more fun to look at. So I stopped. It's probably in the tens of thousands. Anyway, I just think that's a funny kind of like insight into what it's like to be a writer in today's world. Okay, let's see. Anything else here that might be interesting to you? I got some really great questions. I'm sorry to not be able to get to everything. Who would play Karol? Okay, I think most of these have been answered in some capacity. And oh, I guess let me do Frida's. I wrote that down. So Frida asked, do you have advice for Fran's whose Carols haven't had their realizations yet? So what that means is Fran is Carol's sister in the story. And without having too many spoilers, Fran is kind of Carol's opposite. Karol is this hard-charging lawyer who thinks that her career is everything, and Fran just kind of wants more of a life of kind of family. And so the question is kind of like, if you want to be a homemaker, but the people around you, like your parents or the people who take care of you, don't want that for you, what should you do? And I think that the answer for that is that all people have to break away from their family of origin in some way. And that break might be more intense for some people than for others, but everybody has to. You have to leave home. You have to leave home. You have to start a life and a family outside of your family of origin. If you're not doing that and you're an adult, so like you're past college age, if you're not doing that for some reason, you know, there are reasons why you might stay with your parents, like they're ill or, you know, they need your help or whatever, or you work together or something like that. But you know, if there isn't a reason, then you have to do that. And it's because you're afraid that you're going to do something that they disapprove of. It's time to be your own person. And, you know, so I think you do what Fran does in the book and how that played out. But I think that ultimately you have to do the thing that you think you were made to do. And if that goes against what the people who love you are telling you, you should think about that. And your parents are important people, and you should think about whether they're right. But, if you've really decided that they're not, then you have to break away and hope that you'll kind of come back around, or that they'll come back around. So sorry, that's kind of like tough, but I think that's the truth. Okay, Heather says Miracle on 34th Street is one of the few movies where both are great. Okay, good. Great. The old one is too old. The new one is actually still kind of dated, but I have fond memories of watching it as a kid. So do I. Okay, good. Okay, so far we're like new movie. If you self-publish Saving Cinderella, is it easier to self-publish or to have Daily Wire as your publisher? Having Daily Wire as my publisher. 100%. Having a publisher, I mean, self-publishing is great. It's great that it exists. It's great that you can do it. I did it for Saving Cinderella because I couldn't find a publisher. I had an agent and he shopped it around, but for a variety of reasons that are totally fine, nobody wanted it. I felt like it was something that I had to say, I wanted to say. I didn't care if I became like a multimillionaire or like super famous. I wasn't trying to do that. I just was trying to get this thing that I had to say out into the world. And so self-publishing is great for that. You have to have some kind of platform if you want anybody to read it, because it doesn't, it doesn't show up anywhere. Also, you don't get, I mean, this book is beautiful. I mean, look at the pages, like they're dyed red. This cover is amazing. There's like artwork inside that is beautiful. You can't really do that. I mean, you can do some of it self-publishing, but you can't really do it. So, I mean, having a publisher is still, I think, the gold standard, but self-publishing is a good option. It's great to have that option. Okay. Okay. Somebody's saying they don't bookstore Thor. I saw the 95 Miracle on 34th Street as a kid. I like it because of the drunk Santa's butt. Okay. I love the original now, but I didn't see it until much later. I forgot about Drunk Santa's butt. That's good to know. I'll have to think about that. Okay. Thank you for that. Great. Okay. It's been an hour. Let me just close with one more reading, and then I'll check the chat again one more time after that. Just final reminder to check out my website, faithkmore.com, especially if you'd like a book plate. It's free. All you have to do is buy the book. You have to show me that you've bought the book. It can either be like a picture of your physical book, or it can be the page, your notification that you've bought it on Amazon or Daily Wire or whatever. And that's all you have to do. And then there's a link on my website to just email me and show me that. And then I put it in the mail to you that day and you get it. So that's all you have to do. And then if you're not already, please follow me on X, on Twitter at faithkmore, because I would love to connect with you. And that's just really fun. So that's where you can find me. And buy the book if you haven't. Tell your friends, buy it for your friends, buy multiple copies. It makes a great gift. It really does. So I'm not just saying that. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And this has been really fun. I've loved just chatting with you, and we'll do it again. I'm going to read this. I'm going to check the chat. I'm going to tease something to you at the end. I have a slight announcement. I'm not going to make the announcement, but I'm going to tease an announcement. So you might want to stay around. So this last part, so now Karol is viewing her past. So she's with the ghost of Christmas past, and she's watching kind of scenes from her past. And so in this scene, she is at law school. She's the first in her family to go to even college, let alone law school. So she feels kind of like a fish out of water. She's at Yale Law School. So it's like she's really smart, and she's gotten all these scholarships and stuff, but she feels kind of place. But she's at the Christmas party hosted by this lovely law professor who kind of has taken her under his wing a little bit, Professor Fippleton, and she's at his party. She's been sort of chatting, but she needs a breather because it's overwhelming for her to kind of be talking to all of these very smart people who have kind of grown up wealthier than her and in the world of lawyers and doctors that she hasn't grown up in. And so she is trying to take a little breather at this Christmas party, this law school Christmas party that she's at. Okay. She moved away from the center of the room to the large windows to the right of the fireplace. The green velvet curtains were drawn halfway across the window. In the gap between them, Carol could see snow falling in the pool of light cast by an old-fashioned looking street lamp. The professor's suburban street was quiet. Behind her, the conversation blurred into a wall of comforting sound. She put her wine glass down on a side table and reached for the curtain, pulling it back to get a better view of the quiet street. Oh, a man was standing just behind the curtain. He was tall and slender, with a mop of chestnut curls which flopped down over his forehead. He wore gold wire-rimmed glasses and a brown cardigan with elbow patches. He had his hands in the pockets of his black jeans, and he turned to look at Carol for a moment before looking back out at the street. Have you ever looked at a snowflake under a microscope? Carol's heart was still crawling down out of her throat, wondering if it was safe to return to its home in her chest. She looked past the man, wondering if maybe there was somebody else behind the curtain that he was talking to, a whole secret behind-the-curtain party she hadn't known about. But there was no one else. Are you talking to me? She said. Every single one of them has exactly 6 points, the man said, still looking out the window. But they're all different. Not a single one of them alike. They look just like paper snowflakes. You know, the kind kids cut out at school. They're beautiful, but there's no way to preserve them. Carol took a step backward. Maybe she could just put the curtain back the way she'd found it, close it again on this strange man, and act like this had never happened. Okay then, she said. I'm just gonna... The man turned back to her and smiled. It was a lopsided sort of smile, self-effacing and generous. It made his hazel eyes twinkle knowingly, as if suddenly the two of them were giggling together about the strange man they'd just found behind the curtain. Carol felt herself relax. She found that she was smiling too. She took a step closer, came up beside him and rested her hip against the windowsill, surveying him. He met her gaze, his smile softening. Do you always hide behind curtains at parties? She asked. I wasn't hiding, he said, looking surprised. I wanted to watch the snow falling, and the light from the room was making it hard to see out, so He pulled on the curtain a little to demonstrate. Come here, I'll show you. Carol snorted. No thanks. He laughed, a low, genuine chuckle. It's not a line, he said. It's just the way the snowflakes were swirling in the light, it's mesmerizing. You can't possibly be a law student, are you? He smiled. Is it that obvious? Yes. He tilted his head, acknowledging the truth of it. I'm an art student, painting, no interest in the law whatsoever. I grew up in New Haven. My parents know the Fippletons. They always invite me to this party. I come for the cookies. He nodded to a plate of cookies sitting on the windowsill next to him. Want one? He picked up the plate and offered it to her. Carol chose a glazed sugar cookie in the shape of a snowman and smiled her thanks. He took up a jam cookie and set the plate aside. Carol bit the head off her snowman and her eyes widened in surprise. These are good, she said. I'm telling you. Carol realized that the tightness in her chest, the fear of being exposed, of saying the wrong thing, had loosened without her knowledge or consent. She swallowed her bite of cookie and hopped up to sit on the windowsill. I'm Carol, she said. I am a law student, but it's possible I shouldn't be. She took another bite of her cookie, not sure why she'd said that, but strangely not embarrassed that she had. From where she was sitting, she could see the people in the living room, chatting and laughing and milling around. And if they'd wanted to, they could have seen her too. The green velvet curtain brushed her shoulder where she sat on the sill, but it didn't hide her. And now that she'd exposed him, the man was visible too, leaning against the windowsill and eating his cookie. But they were removed enough from the rest of the party guests that it was unlikely anyone would come to join them. I'm Beau, he said. He popped the rest of his cookie into his mouth, dusted off the crumbs, and held out his hand to shake. She put her hand in his and smiled up into his eyes. So that is Carol for her first meeting with Beau, who becomes very important to her and to me and to all of us. I love Beau. Yes, I love Beau too. I love him very, very much. He's my favorite character in the whole book. Yes, I can easily imagine Henry Cavill. Oh, good. Okay, maybe he should be it. He'll have to learn to do an American accent. I'm sure he can. I loved this scene. Such a meet cute, very romantic. Thank you, Suzanne. I love Beau. It's a love story. This story, I know all about motherhood and about her kind of finding her way back to her kids. But to me, it's really about a woman falling back in love with her husband. It's a love story because Fezziwig. Yes, Professor Fippleton is Mr. Fezziwig from Dickens. This scene was really well done, very romantic, but also very easygoing. Thank you. Thanks. I would like to, I mean, yes, I wrote it, but it also just kind of happened. A lot of the stuff just kind of like, I don't know, it sort of channels through you. So it was fun to live. It was fun to live it while I was writing it. This is a nice twist on the original story. Instead of Scrooge and Belle splitting up, Carol and Beau stay together and get married. Yes, that is true. And you'll get to see if they stay together at the end, right? Well, he was Superman, Henry Cavill, so I'd say he knows how to sound American. Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay, so he can do an American accent, so he can be Beau, or very made up version of the movie. Okay, that's we're out of time. We're past time. Thank you again so much for being here. So what I was going to say is, in the new year, I have something new. It's not a new book. A new book is hopefully coming at some point. But in the new year, I have something new that I am going to share with you. And it has something to do with books, but it is not my book. And I'm really excited about it. I really hope that you will follow me in some way so that you don't miss it. So again, if you go to my website, you can join my mailing list. That's a way to not miss this January announcement that has something to do with books, but is not my book. If you follow me on Twitter or X or whatever it is, that's another way that you can know what I'm going to say about this announcement. So that's another way that you can make sure that you don't miss it. So please do those things so that when January comes around and I have this thing to tell you about, that you don't miss it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of you who've bought the book and left reviews. If you haven't left a review yet and you would like to, and it's a good review, I would love it if you do that. And, get in touch, stay in touch. I'm always happy to hear from you. I'm always happy to get your emails or your messages on Twitter. So thank you. And this has been lovely chatting with you. And, we'll do things like this again in the future as well. Write to me for your book plates, pick up your book, tell me how you like it. And I hope you have a lovely night and a very Merry Christmas. And I will see you very soon. Bye. Thanks.